Now we are inside the biggest hall of columns in the world. The Hypostyle hall, the hall of columns of the Temple of Karnak, is the biggest hall of columns in the world.
Walking through this great Hypostyle hall is one of the thrills of a lifetime, for it is the most important and largest Hypostyle hall in Egypt. It covers such a large ground area that Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris could fit inside of it.
Huge masonry columns that were constructed in sections, in drums, one piled on top of the other, and then covered with hieroglyphics, telling the history, telling the stories of ancient Egypt.
134 columns in total around us in this hall, over here. We're standing between 61 of them that are identical. Same diameter, same height. 61 here. Then on 2 rows in the middle, 6 and 6, that's 12, and also got different but similar capitals. And then another 61 the other side, exactly like those around us over here. Originally, there used to be one complete roof over these 61 columns around us, a higher roof covering the level between the 2 lines of higher columns in the middle, then another third roof covering the other 61 columns the other side. Where the difference in height between the higher columns and the lower ones, clear story windows like that facing us, is what filled the gap and sent the light onto the central area. Also, where the roof used to meet the side walls, small windows sent light from the side. It was smooth lighting over here for this hall. With the smooth lighting still provides the enough visibility that's needed in here and that kind of holy atmosphere within the inside of the temple. These all were painted. All these columns, they were painted. If you look above me here, you can see some of the cartouches, and the background color was the bright white background color. You can see like down the capitals of the columns there, some of the original colors as well still preserved. Where the sun didn't have the direct effect. Of course, the sun is the biggest damaging effect for the colors. This hall was finished by Ramses II, but he wasn't the one who started it. Many other kings added to this hall. Different kings, finally ending with Ramses II. A lot of these kings carved their names on these columns, but what happened when Ramses finished it, he ordered that the names of other kings should be erased and they put his name instead of all of them. They done that in the lower lines of the cartouches. Over here, they all carry the name of Ramses II. But some of the upper cartouches still carry some of the names of the earlier kings. Of course, when Ramses II came to add his cartouches, he was afraid that another king will do the same to him. So when it comes to showing his name, you can notice it is the deepest cut into the wall to make it a hard job for another king to erase his name and put his name in instead. If we look at that cartouche, for example, that's the coronation name of Ramses II. From right, there is the figure of the solar disk, which is Ra. To the left, the next symbol, like the head of an animal with a long neck. That's Usur, power, the word, or the god of power, and the word power as well. And then the seated goddess who have the bent feather on her head, we've seen her outside. Ma'at, goddess of justice, exactly. He is the powerful and just as Ra. The wave of water is the letter N, means by. So chosen by Ra. What's the definition of cartouche? When the Egyptians used to put the names of their kings or queens, they used to put it inside like a circle, from the idea of the eternity of that name. Because the king, when he becomes a king, the gods are freeing him from all evil. So he will always keep coming back to life. You know? So that's eternity practically. So this name is going to live to eternity. They put it inside a circle. But eventually, over the time, the names started becoming more complicated like this. The powerful and just as Ra, the chosen by Ra, needs the circle to be elongated. But the man who discovered the keys to the ancient Egyptian language from the Rosetta Stone, his name was Champollion. He was a French man. The figure looked for him like a bullet. Bullet in French is cartouche, so he said cartouche. And that's how it became famously known as cartouche. But originally, the ancient Egyptians used to call it the shen. See that horizontal upper cartouche up there. Okay? At the end, the left end, there is a figure with a god who is seated with like 2 feathers over his head. Who is that? Amun, the god of this temple. Is the human form with 2 long feathers over his head. That's Amun. The next one opposite to him, a god with a falcon's head and the solar disk over his head. Who is that? Ra. So Amun Ra. And then there's like a decorative form of the letter M. That's also the letter M in the ancient Egyptian language. Then a hook. Can you see there is a hook and another hook? One hook is S. So Amun-Ra-Meses, or shortened to Ramses. So that's where the name comes from. What does Amun-Ra-Meses mean? Son of Amun-Ra. So that's what he was called when he was born. That's what he became called when he became a king. Now, each one of these columns around us is made out of different cylinders of stone. So they want to make a column like this. What they do is bring blocks of stone, put them in a circular form with a mold of sandstone, fill the gaps in between the blocks. They make like a cylinder. And they make 5, 6, 7, 10, depending on how high they want to go, cylinders, putting one on top of the other. When they build a hole like this, of course, you can imagine using the ramps, so they would make a line of cylinders, putting the whole 134 cylinders around, and then fill the gaps in between with sand, and then slide the next layers on top, and then fill, and then the next, and so on, until they get to the top. They put the roof and start digging out the sand from inside this hole totally. This is how something like that hole would be built. And of course, then they start to make wooden scaffolding against the walls and against the columns around us to decorate and paint. When they get to the height they want, they start casing the wall, the whole column from the outside with a thick plaster casing that makes it as if it's a solid one piece of stone, while it's not. It's made out of several cylinders of stone. Over a few thousand years, this hole was finished by Ramses II like 3,200 years ago. Over 3,200 years, lots of earthquakes hit this area and started shaking those columns, and that causing those cylinders to start breaking apart. Some of them fell down, and with that the roof collapsed into the hole. And all that around us was restored in a big restoration project that started in the year 1981. Still though, always we have a problem here from underground water. Now what happens here, after building the high dam of Aswan, the level of underground water table came to rise, reaching now the foundation of these columns. And they absorb the water through the earth. Water evaporates through the body of the column by the effect of the sun, but leaving the minerals in the water to accumulate, like this, forming a layer of salt. Once this starts to get whiter and whiter and starts to become a big mark of white, they have to dig that out and fill with a new mold of sandstone to protect it and to keep this hole surviving until they solve the problem with the underground water. If we continue this way, please. This hole of the temple over here was the addition of the king Thutmose I. Thutmose I finished that hole in the temple, and by that time, this was the front wall of the temple then. All later additions by other kings. Okay? So that was the front wall of the temple, and the king then decided to erect 2 obelisks on each side of the door of the temple. Later, his grandson, called Thutmose III, also decided to add another 2 obelisks, and we can see the base of one and a broken part of the bottom of the other. These are in Turkey now. So there used to be 4 here in front of the temple. We are looking at 2 obelisks. In between those 2 kings, there was the famous Queen Hatshepsut, who will visit her temple tomorrow. And the amazing thing Hatshepsut did is she added obelisks over here, but she added them inside the temple, not outside. These obelisks are granite, comes from Aswan by boats. When they come, they pull them towards here from the Nile, and they want space to be able to lift them up and erect them. That's fine over here, but in there, how? Remains a big mystery and a big question mark, as if they were dropped from the middle of the sky into the middle of the temple. And the only theory assumes that they probably should have filled this whole temple with sand and extended that to a long ramp to slide the obelisk up on it and then dig down to have it fall onto its dedicated base. Actually, it was not 1, there were 2 that were put that way probably, and one of them still stands in its place. That's the biggest Egyptian obelisk, nearly 26 meters in height, while another identical one used to stand next to it, which in an earthquake fell down and got broken. We will see part of it by the sacred lake over here. And each obelisk is a 1 solid block of granite, decorated with text normally praising the name of the king or the queen who made them. The fact that we have recorded on the obelisk of Queen Hatshepsut is that From the time she ordered her famous architect, whose name was Senmut, to cut her obelisks from the quarries of Aswan, they went to cut them. They polished them to be smooth. They carved them to decorate them with the text praising the name of the queen. Up on it, they transported them by boats. They brought them here. They erected them here. The whole job was finished in 7 months' time. That is something that is actually recorded on this obelisk. We have, of course, which is a record of time for something huge like this. This is one solid block estimated to weigh over 320 tons in weight. Of course, we can imagine the job of bringing it over here and how complicated it was, and cutting it and polishing all that piece together and decorating. An obelisk is like a high tower going up towards the sun, ending with a pyramidal top. Because of the idea that Atum, who became later Ra, the sun god, appeared first on the top of the pyramidal shaped island, so that made the pyramid shape always an indication of the existence and the presence of the sun gods. Of course, dedicating the temple to Amun over here, they wanted to indicate the presence of the sun god by the tops of the obelisk having pyramidal tops to indicate his existence. And these tops used to be covered with like a cap of gold to reflect the sunshine and indicate his presence. Let's together walk a little bit this way. Here's the inner sanctuary, which was an addition from the time of Alexander the Great, who added 2 sanctuaries, one here and one in the temple of Luxor, nearly identical. Now let's head this way and see the sacred lake of the temple, please. We arrive here to the site of the sacred lake. There's a lake over there. You can see the water, which is a lake that's the water of was considered the sacred or holy water of the temple. This lake was actually used for the daily washing of the priests and some of the religious festivals. Was the sacred water of the temple. It's a lake that fills from the underground water table level directly. You can see people are turning around a high stool with a figure of the granite scarab on top of it. The scarab was worshipped by the ancient Egyptians as a figure that represents the sun god at sunrise time. Later, Greeks and Romans came, conquered Egypt, ruled Egypt, but shown the respect to the Egyptian belief. And they wanted actually to unite the beliefs of the Egyptians and the Greeks. So, as if, for example, Amun is Zeus. You know, they started to say they are actually the same people or the same gods that we worship, but in different names. But for the Greeks, when it came to gods with animal figures, this was totally against their mythology. It was not acceptable in Greek mythology to have any animal figures as gods. So, to please the Egyptians, they started giving good meanings to the gods who are worshipped with animal forms. Like the scarab, he became considered the symbol of good fortune or good luck. And eventually people had the belief if you walk around the scarab 7 times, making a wish, it should come true. So you can try over there with others. Also, we have on this side the obelisk, part of the obelisk of the other obelisk of Queen Hatshepsut, which fell down and got broken, and part of it laid on the side over here. Now that concludes our tour together of Karnak Temple, and the rest is our free time. Now, so if you want to wander around, take some photos.
When you're touring a major complex like the Temple of Karnak, it's nice and important to have some free time so you can walk around at your leisure and have a closer look at things that interest you. It's also nice to have a guided tour.
Yes, they've got a cafe. You can buy postcards, sit down and take a break by all means, and then continue exploring Karnak Temple on your own. And you just are free to roam on your own throughout this amazing temple. It's the largest religious structure in the world, so you really can spend some time just walking around here in Karnak and enjoying the sights, enjoying the people. You can walk all the way around into the back precincts of the temple. There's so much to see, you could spend a couple of hours here. And you want to take a good look, and one of those ways to examine it is do some sketches, as Spencer is doing here for his portfolio.
It's quite fascinating to read the history of the hieroglyphics and how it documents the different kings who came into Karnak, one succeeding the other, trying to outdo his predecessor and building greater columns, higher temples, bigger monumental statues. And each king would generally erase the name of the preceding king and put his own name in place. And then his name gets erased by the next pharaoh who comes along. And so it goes throughout the entire history of ancient Egypt. It's only through careful archaeological work and interpretations of the hieroglyphics that the true picture of the succession of kings and pharaohs has emerged over this 3,000-year period of Egyptian history.
It's wonderful how they still have many of these huge statues. These are original works of art still in place. Everything here is original. Some of it has been rehabilitated, some of it's been fixed up and re-erected, but it's all original stuff. Tearing herself away back to the bus.